All right, the recording should be going. So this meeting is being recorded and broadcast, pardon me, and broadcast on the Town of Barnstable's Government Access Channel in accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 20. The chair must inquire whether anyone else is recording this meeting, and if so, to please make their presence known. All right, over to you, Barry.
All right, so we'll call the meeting to order. So why don't we start with the minutes from the last meeting that were distributed before? Does anyone have any question about the minutes?
They look good to me.
Okay, same here. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So move.
Okay, John, second.
Second.
All right, all in favor, approving the minutes? We all do. Okay, great. Thank you. Well, why don't we go into old business green communities? I guess since we met last, the date for the stretch code / green communities workshop is been approved for March 20th. So we all get that. That was I guess Gordon is back as our liaison to our committee. I guess that's happened, I think, since we met last. So it's good to have Gordon back. And there have been a number of other things as we're planning the stretch code workshop. So I'll kind of just outline what they are or what they have been. I did meet with Mark Ells. And that was a helpful meeting. I guess at our last meeting we had David Anthony and Sean Hogan. We planned a meeting that is for planning the workshop, which is for next Thursday morning. So I will be there. I think Jane will be there, and David Anthony and Sean Hogan. I just got an email that they may have to leave at 11 or a little bit before 11 because they have another commitment, but we'll hopefully get as much done as we can. And Sean will be able to stay, so he'll probably be doing some of the detail work anyway. I did talk to Brian Florence, the building inspector. He wanted to get clarification from Mark Ells as to his role. I haven't heard back. If I don't hear by tomorrow, I'll follow up on that. I put together just an outline for the workshop, which I think we went over at the last meeting. So from our committee, I would have maybe some role, not sure what it would be, maybe introducing. Jane will, we've proposed that she would talk about the public health impacts of the stretch code versus the base code. And Chris Cloninger would talk about the climate change and the effect that has in the whole discussion. So I presumably you're working Thursday morning, Chris. I don't know whether you need to be there, but maybe in preparation for that, at least you can send me an email as to what your thoughts are in terms of what you would cover. And I think in the scheme of things, we're probably gonna have quite a few speakers, let 5 or 7 minutes, something like that.
I mean, I can make it work, Barry. Let me see if I can kind of work my schedule around a little bit on Thursday, the 20th.
Okay, so it would be an in-person meeting?
Yeah, so I could absolutely try to be there.
Okay, good. That's even better. Okay.
Barry,
Yeah.
could I suggest and maybe ask Gordon's opinion as part of Chris's message? Gordon was the one who proposed that we make a statement, a declaration of a climate emergency. I think was it 2019 or I don't know. It's been a while. anyway, I mean, we've declared a climate emergency, so we should be taking that in consideration with everything we do. So we can give you the exact town council meeting when that was voted on.
I'll find, I've got a copy. I'll find it and
Great.
get it to Chris. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, and Jane, I definitely think that ought to be included in the presentation. I'm not sure yet whether that would go there. And I was hoping Chris would talk a little bit about the background of the climate science. So totally agree with you that should be in the workshop, but to be decided, I think where
Sure.
it fits
Yeah,
in.
that's fair.
Yeah.
But I think that, I mean, to me, that's kind of the baseline assumption for why do we even care?
Yeah, I think the other, yeah, the other things that have happened that are relevant from the last, there were changes in the state law from I think in 2021 and 2022. And that basically set these interim targets for decarbonization, a reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. And then the Mass Save program is kind of tailored around that. And so this all relates to the importance of climate change in this, but it's both what, the town's resolution, the state law, the Mass Save program, and the stretch code is all part of this. Last Thursday, Maggie Downey of the Cape Light Compact gave a presentation to the town council meeting about the new 3-year plan. And I think did a good job of outlining the program and the focus on electrification of heating, cooling, hot water heating. And that's kind of what the program was focused on and what the incentives are summarized. And so I talked to Maggie in the last week before she gave the presentation, and a couple of things. She at my request agreed to cooperate and potentially provide a speaker about the interaction between the stretch code and the Cape Light Compact or Mass Save incentive programs. I have been talking and have gotten feedback already from Laura Selmer about the all-electric program and what are the incentives and requirements associated with it. There are 3 different levels, but that was helpful.
Is she with where is she based? Is she with Cape Light Compact or?
Yeah, she is. She works with for Margaret Song.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And so I've also talked to several builders, architect who works in the field, and we're trying to get probably someone to speak into sort of the practical impacts. And I guess now that we've had HERS raters, all the other Cape Cod towns are stretch code towns. I got a fairly good sense from talking to Bob Riley of Cape Light Compact how it kind of works in practice, where basically the HERS rater and the architect use a software to help make design choices that will meet the performance standards of the stretch code, and at the same time do it in a way that's most cost effective. And this is kind of shown in the DOER slides, which they did update their sort of their cost benefit analysis for residential construction to reflect more current interest rates and energy costs. And effectively some of the savings that they're showing with the stretch code is really not that heat pumps are less costly, but that in having a performance-based system rather than a prescriptive system, which the base code is, it allows you to make trade-offs, and in their examples, to use less efficient and less expensive windows and ceiling insulation, but using heat pumps and other measures that the net effect is you're doing it at a lower cost. And I think that that's something that really needs to be emphasized. But having a performance-based system, it allows you to make those trade-offs, which you don't necessarily have even with the base code, because you're required, each measure is required to meet certain requirements. So, yeah.
Barry, I was copied on that same email back from Judith Holt that you were, and I think we've really, I mean, we focused on the stretch code appropriately because that was sort of that was the stumbling point last time. But I think we should also put in context what type of building are required to use this stretch code, and how many buildings are there that are built each year in the town compared to what is the inventory that David Anthony is responsible for of all the municipal buildings, including the schools, that will benefit from the not only the state incentives, but some of the other support programs. I think it's a real, we're focused on a fairly tiny number of relatively small numbers.
Yeah, I will say I agree in part and I disagree in part. I'll be kind of explicit about it. So where I agree is the number of single family homes that are built, for example, are relatively small. The number of homes that would be subject to the large addition aspect of the stretch code, that's going to be smaller. And we should get the data what I've circulated to Brian Florence, the others, to request that for the last 2 years is to get that data.
Good.
And so that it's very explicit, and going to ask David Anthony and we have asked them to be explicit at least about the types of energy efficiency measures and the types of buildings that would, the town buildings that would be receive the benefit of the Green Communities program. We did get from DOER already that the initial grant would be something over $220,000. So I agree with that, but I think given people's concern about housing is that it's an issue of public concern. So I don't think we can really diminish that. But I think we should put it in the context, and your point is correct, is that we are talking about a relatively small number of buildings. I think where the case is stronger than last time is for new construction with heat pumps and the incentives for them, at least based on the DOER analysis, the upfront costs should not be higher. In fact, if anything, they may be lower, just because of not so much that the cost of heat pumps are lower per se, but because of the flexibility inherent in the program. And secondly, when you get into smaller homes, in construction, that you can go with the ductless systems and really eliminate the need for ducts, which is a significant expense. So in that case, that you can say that if you look at the costs of the heat pumps and the ducts, that actually they are less. So whereas I think before that the focus was on the additional cost, I think people were looking mostly at gas heating, and the DOER analysis said it is either in fact it is a little more expensive, or it's basically a wash. So it's you know, it would just, things are different from back then. The other thing is that what's new is the it affects new additions, but I think DOER in their amended rules, I think have pretty effectively dealt with some of the objections to that. So
Good. Well, that sounds reasonable.
okay.
I just remember feeling kind of overwhelmed a few years ago when it was brought up, thinking that, oh my gosh, the stretch code is going to affect all these buildings, and it was, you know, it was significant, but not majority, not a huge number, really.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think I'm better prepared, or I
Okay.
understand it better.
Yeah, and I've gotten some feedback already from Cape Light Compact about their program and how it interacts. And I've circulated some questions to sort of the group planning the workshop. I haven't gotten any feedback, so I'll probably send out the you know, the request to do ER for a little more clarification, particularly of the economic analysis that they did. I think that would be helpful. So let me see if there's anything else on that to talk about. You know, I mean, just realistically, there were you know, there's you know, a home builder who spoke about it against the stretch code last time, and wouldn't surprise me to see that again. And Brian Florence spoke against it. I think some of the objections he had then, I expect we're not going to hear them, because I think with the passage of time and the experience that they weren't merited, but he still has concerns about the cost impacts and the complexity. You know, people talk about there being different stretch codes, but I think that's difficult for people in the field. But if we go to the stretch code, we're going to be consistent with the bulk of the other communities on the Cape and in the state as well. So
just as a historical reminder, he asked us to not pass the stretch code so that he could go to the state himself and create his own stretch code just for the town of Barnstable. And it took them about 3 minutes to say no. And we've been stuck back there ever since. So just saying.
yeah, I mean, and I think part of that, he wanted the town to produce its own HERS raters, but yeah, so that wasn't accepted. Yeah.
Barry, I'm curious, Gordon, what is your sense of the council now? Because there are 3 of you who voted last time, who voted yes, and 3 on the council who voted no, who are still on the council. But it's all, the rest are all new, isn't that right?
Yeah, yes, you're right. And you've done your homework. I wouldn't have known that 3 and 3. I don't know. You know, I don't know. I didn't come to a lot of meetings while Kristen was on this committee, but I'm not sure that she would be a wholehearted for it. But I think in general, we had a good discussion about flow neutral the other night, which is an issue that's come up before that hasn't gotten momentum behind it. And I think if we can get a few builders out there and maybe an architect or 2 or a HERS rater, people who have experience. We're the only town on the Cape that doesn't have a stretch code, so people have been working with the stretch code and working in Barnstable. Maybe we have to find somebody who doesn't want to cross Brian Florence. You know, maybe we need to find somebody from Yarmouth or somebody from Mashpee Sandwich who can come in and say, "I've had no problem doing it." You know, Allison Alessi has been working for years, and will say that right up front.
Yeah,
but she's
you
had no
know,
trouble.
yeah. One of the things I think is important, a lot of the objections sort of, I think, confuse the stretch code with the specialized opt-in code, which a few of the towns in the Cape have adopted,
Right.
and do have additional requirements that go above and beyond and do impose more cost. So I think we need to be very specific, and I assume people agree that we're just really the ask here is to go to the stretch code level. And
Yes.
but I think we need to be very specific about that because some of the objections that I've heard really don't so much relate to the stretch code as they do to the specialized opt-in code.
That's a good clarification, I think. I agree.
So let's see. So if there's nothing else on green communities, we can. I think I mentioned the DOER is off for 2 speakers and potentially a third. But the one is their consultant on the stretch code, and the other is Lisa Sullivan, just to talk about the overall program.
I think if they can clarify the cost, the cost differential, both the upfront cost and the cost to the builder, the cost to the building owner, and then the operating and maintenance cost. How long, if there is a higher upfront cost, how long before that's recouped, and then you start to save on operating and maintenance. Be nice if one of their speakers could do that.
Right. I think some of it is pretty implicit with anyways, we have some requests and did put out a request for someone to talk about the economics, but so I'm not sure that the stretch code guy is more of a technical consultant than an economist. So anyways, I'm trying to get clarification on that.
Okay. Thanks.
All right. Let's move on to food waste then. John, you want to talk to that?
Sure, sure. And I don't have any new developments in terms of any of the things that we are working on. Really waiting for Kelly to get back with her input on the outline that we're working with. But while we're on the subject, I thought it might be helpful to clarify one thing, kind of just sort of coming out of the discussion last time, and that is to just make the distinction between food waste in general and wasted food in particular, or to say really there are kind of maybe another way to put it is that there are 2 types of food waste. There's really wasted food, which was food that at one point was perfectly good to eat and for whatever reason got thrown out. But there's also a very large amount of what we're including in food waste, which was never edible in the first place. A corn cob or the skin on a butternut squash, or there's quite a bit of a lot of food waste isn't actually wasted food. So when we talk about there being as much as 25 or 30% of municipal trash being food waste, that isn't all food that could have been eaten and just got wasted. And while I think it's important to focus on both on collecting all both the food waste and the wasted food and composting all of it. My folks really has been more on the composting side and not on the waste reduction side. There are a lot of very good initiatives to collect food from grocery stores and other places that's about to go bad, and to get it to people who need food. And certainly we want to educate people on the overall environmental cost of wasting food. But there's a lot going on with that, but that hasn't been my particular focus. So I just kind of wanted to throw that out as kind of just sort of a clarification of what I'm working on.
Okay. Thanks. And we're we're waiting for the weather to warm to go to the transfer station.
Right, yes, we've still got a few things in the works, but I haven't, none of these things have moved forward in the last 2 weeks.
Right, okay, all right.
I'm sorry to say.
Yeah, so I think John and I have offered to go and talk to people at the transfer station, giving out the free buckets for holding compost, and we've talked to the guy who runs the transfer station. And hopefully we'll do this in a safe place. Just to note that there was a woman who was just carrying bags of stuff to, I guess, the initial part where you're putting your trash, and was apparently hit by an elderly woman with her car, and was severely injured. So if you do use the transfer station, just be careful.
I thought they very appropriately gave an award to the employee who was able to get to this woman and use tourniquets. She would have bled to death. He really did save her life. But I wonder, thinking about that entrance, in addition to rewarding him and warning people just through the news story, maybe there should be a stop sign more than a car length back, so people are not right up against the next car while the person is unloading. I mean, I think that would be a very reasonable and fairly minor, adjustment to.
Yeah. So here's the story that I heard, or actually my wife heard from someone there, is that the driver was an elderly woman who put her foot on the accelerator instead of the brake, or it was an accident. But it's good to look into safety measures that potentially could protect people.
But a stop sign would be a good idea to stop them, 15 feet back.
Right. Just to not,
Okay.
right. And then if she did, whoever did step on the accelerator, maybe the person would have a chance to get out of the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that's, that could easily happen again. If people get distracted or they're looking at their, texting while they're waiting to be next in line or whatever. So I think I'm sitting on this Vision Zero committee with resident feedback, stakeholder feedback for the Cape Cod Commission. And it's pretty alarming what all the folks report in terms of distracted driving and the increase in distracted driving Cape-wide. A lot of the people on this stakeholder group are, they're police and safety officers of various types. And, they talk about not letting their kids ride bikes anywhere near 6A because there's so many distracted driving and the winding and whatever. But I think that happens everywhere. It happens at stop signs, happens at stoplights.
Yeah.
So I think that suggestion maybe could be floated.
I don't know where they are with or if they're even they were considering redesigning the whole transfer station, but it was going to cost too much. And I don't know if they're still considering doing that. But one of the things we might consider is using a single queue, multiple server design so that there's no queuing behind each individual
That's not a bad
transfer
idea.
station, but a single one, and that would just put everybody back.
It's potentially a good idea.
Yeah, that's a good idea, Rob, I think.
Okay.
Maybe it's worth just asking, who's in charge of that, and either Tracy or DPW, or I don't know who we would ask. Do you know, Gordon, who we'd ask?
Probably Tracy, whether they could draw in lines and put in stop signs. It's just, a sign and some paint. Shouldn't be that difficult.
So,
okay. I'll talk to DPW.
Thanks.
Oh, good.
Great.
Thank you, Gordon. I was just going to ask for a volunteer to follow up on that,
Oh.
but you beat me to it. And you're probably the best person to do it. So, okay. All right. Anything else on food waste?
No, unless anyone else has any.
No, and I still haven't heard back from the folks at the yacht club. I don't know if they take time off, or if the winter's, you know, slow season at least. I'll re-engage, but maybe not for a while. I'm just kind of trying to be as up to snuff as I can be on the green communities first. So, but I think it's worth hearing from them and or the Falmouth School folks at some point.
Okay.
John, would you be able to send that questionnaire out again? I think I joined after that had circulated. I'd be more than happy to help you and Barry when the weather gets a little bit better to be out there.
Oh, that'd be great.
Absolutely.
Great.
Oh, that'd be
Thank
terrific.
you.
Yeah. I'll send you. Have you seen the outline?
I have not.
You know, I don't know that either one of these has been ever circulated to the full committee.
Okay.
Should we
But
do,
you know what?
do that? I mean, Barry, should we go ahead and circulate the drafts as they currently are? I think
Yeah.
where we left things was Kelly wanted to look at them and then was going to circulate.
But I think, you know, John, if you could just particularly give Ron some materials and just some of the email
Sure.
back and forth. And I think including the emails between Tracy and me.
Yeah.
So that kind of shows where we're at the discussion.
Good. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll do that. Yeah, I'll send you what I got.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
It may also be worth mentioning to Ron that actually one of the reasons, I mean, there are a couple reasons why we want to get this food waste into compost and not leaving it mixed in with the solid waste, because we end up shipping that off Cape, and the food waste, because it's, you know, it's wet material, it ends up being, John, is it 30% or 35% of the weight?
There are the various estimates that people have on that tend to range around the 25 to 30%.
So it's quite a cost.
Yeah. I mean,
and then if it gets, you know, if it gets buried, it ends up being anaerobically digested and turns into methane. So, you know, there's a cost impact, and then there's a climate change impact, and if it were to be composted on Cape, it could be used to improve our soil.
right. So they're really three big reasons. There's the, you know, cutting down on solid waste overall, eliminating the landfill methane, and then producing the compost, which promotes plant growth and reduces need for agricultural chemicals, and has a lot of the end product has a lot of environmental benefit as well. So, you know, to me overall, that it's just you know, in terms of things that you can do to have a positive impact on the climate, to me it's sort of one of the pieces of low-hanging fruit.
Yeah. I mean, just in terms of the economics, if you get people to compost in their backyard and not to send it at all to the transfer station, whether it's composted or not, that is a clear winner, a cost saver. If it right now in, you know, relatively small amounts, it's going to a turkey farm on the Cape, and the cost of that is about the same, maybe even slightly higher. I think, you know, once you do it at a larger scale, that's where you may get some cost savings.
Yeah.
All right. Climate change and climate science. I, you know, just say before I turn this over to Chris, he gave a really great presentation before the, I guess, Cape Cod Technology Council at 4 Cs. And there were a number of us who were present. I think Jane and Ron and myself. But that was really excellent. You look like a guy who's had a lot of experience giving presentations, and
You've done that before, I think.
yeah.
I appreciate it.
That
Well,
was-
yeah, thank you guys. Hmm?
I think it's the biggest audience we ever had. Any of the technology council First Fridays that I've been to. So it was very popular.
Awesome. So yeah, I mean, I guess I don't really have anything too much to add, but I'd like to talk to you then maybe offline, Barry, about how to present for the 20th. And I think that there are some slides that could be good for telling the story of why it's important climate-wise that maybe we could pull from and go over.
Yep, I think your work that has to do with sea level rise on Cape Cod, not just,
Okay.
not just hypothetically 20 years from now, but maybe in the next big storm and the storm surge.
Yeah.
That
Well,
was impressive.
Okay.
yeah, so maybe if I can suggest, and while I have you here, my calendar, you want to
Yeah.
just, why don't we just pick a time that we can talk offline? What's your schedule look like? Maybe, yeah. Being retired, I'm more open, I'm sure, than you are.
Let's see, Barry. I mean, what do you want to do lunch next Tuesday, the 18th?
Let's do that.
Okay.
Gordon, what do you think people will want to hear from your perspective? What do you think the counselors are going to want to hear?
I think they're going to want to hear from builders, and architects. That it's something we've done in 299 towns in the state, and it seems to work. I think 2 towns have pulled out recently, but we don't have to mention that. So and then also I was talking with Maggie Downey the other day about the cost of retrofitting. If we don't do it now, we're going to have to retrofit. We already have to retrofit 80% of the houses on Cape Cod. And I think it's also part of a movement toward decarbonization where maybe wind is slowed down a little bit, but eventually we're going to get away from fossil fuels. And we need to start preparing ahead for that. So just being prepared.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Well, good. I mean, I think, I agree with what you're saying, Gordon. I think that we're trying to plan around that. But I think something that shows you a little bit of the climate science and
Definitely.
the history of that, I think would
Yeah.
be good. Okay, so Chris will and we'll follow up in terms of
So there's also a chance people can talk to their town councilors. There's no reason why you can't call them and say, I'm on the infrastructure committee. What are your concerns?
Yeah.
Some people are up for reelection, in November, may feel they need to vote one way, but I think the personal contact is very helpful. And just say, call me if you have questions.
Okay.
That's a good suggestion. We have this big project that you guys worked on, I think, Chris, the Sandy Neck.
Yeah, that's our project. Yeah.
That's a huge project that was presented at town council sometime this fall, and you all did the modeling for how far did they need to move and so forth. So that's that'd be a very appropriate one slide to mention, I would think. I don't think we're going to have a lot of time, right, Barry? Like five minutes or something.
Yeah, I mean, yes. So it almost needs to be bullet pointed and I mean, the way I look at it, these are things that ought to be covered just to be, give the full picture. But yeah, I think it'll be more focused on, really what are the impacts to the town, I think, in terms of the economics, the effect on construction and whatnot. Okay.
Does
Barry?
everybody know, does everybody know who their counselor is?
Yes.
Ron knows. Okay. Rob, do you know? Who's your counselor? This is a quiz. Pop quiz.
Leary, somebody?
Oh, Paul Neary?
Paul
Leary,
Neary.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
him.
okay.
He lives around the corner. I know where he lives. I don't know his name.
Okay. Give him a call. Okay.
And Gordon, as the chair of the committee, can I call anybody?
You can call anybody you want. Yes.
We could all call anybody, right? We
Right.
could just say, what questions can we answer for you? Really.
Right. Anybody you might know peripherally, just you can call Charlie Bloom in Hyannis. I don't know. The more they hear, the
Okay.
better, I guess. Well,
Okay, good.
I don't want to overwhelm people, but
Yeah, and some of the conversations are good because people raise issues, and then it gives you the opportunity to get answers, but before the workshop.
it's hard in a big meeting like town council to make those decisions. When we're workshop and new stuff is coming at you. So I hopefully one thing I'd like to see at the end of the workshop is a policy statement that says we want to continue moving forward with the stretch code.
I
Somehow
yeah. So Gordon, I think.
we can't vote on it that night, but
Yeah, so here's the thinking, and I think this is what Kristen suggested, and I've talked to Mark. I mean, to me, it makes sense. You have the workshop, and
that's
before people forget about it,
yeah.
you then can deal with it in with a specific resolution, whatever you need,
Right.
follow-up meeting, and also that time, let's say it's 2 weeks, gives the ability to answer questions that have been
Right.
raised that you don't have the answers to. But yeah, so ideally you want to take it up before,
Right, and have the next, you want to have the next step already in line.
Yeah.
When would public comment be? It wouldn't be, would it be during the workshop, or would it be at the next meeting prior to
It
the
would
vote?
probably have to be at the next meeting. Unless people wanted to comment at the beginning of a town council meeting, knowing that it's coming up as a topic.
Yeah, and
That happened at the last meeting,
yeah.
when we talked about flow neutral, is people gave, just got up and spoke their piece beforehand.
Okay.
So it would be advertised.
Is flow neutral building the sewer capacity without any excess capacity? Is that it? Or is that something different? Oops, you're on mute.
But say, what about this? I missed
Yeah,
what you said.
so I haven't really followed in detail, but when people say flow neutral, does that mean you build the sewer capacity for the load that you have and you don't build in any excess capacity? Is that
Right? You don't want to exceed the capacity but you built in a big buffer into the original plan, so that there's extra capacity. Not maybe a lot, but they don't want you building sewer systems and then using it to expand growth all over town. We
okay?
want to deal with the problem we've got. But there are ways to move capacity around.
Okay.
That's not the biggest point is that we're going to save $2.7 million a year.
Okay, so my field was in the electric power field, where an important question to this is, okay, you build to the need, but when you want to do the next expansion, what is the cost of that? In other words,
No, I think this whole process is it's a 30-year sewer project,
okay,
and there may be whole neighborhoods. I've got one in my district that they may put in alternative systems. May not be there may not be pipes and pumps.
okay,
So there may be alternative technologies that are always getting better that will allow us to take up some of the capacity, to create a little more room for capacity. So it's a fluid kind of thing. And then we've got, Jane's, we've got freshwater, and we've got Schubel's Pond. What's going to happen there?
okay.
But let's not go there, John.
All right, yeah, I'm sorry. Let's get. All right. So Jane, in terms of health impacts, air quality monitoring, do you have anything to contribute here? Or?
No, the folks that had worked with the superintendent and given her the air monitors were at their big national or international meeting last week. So I didn't get any feedback on, have they been used or not, but I did actually, not necessarily relative to our current system here, but the EPA had a fantastic webinar, I think it was last Wednesday or Thursday, that was specifically on green schools. And the big focus was on indoor air quality and what it did for the health of the occupants and the productivity, and both in schools. They also reference schools or businesses. So, with better air quality, which is the big step up between base code and stretch code, is this external bringing in outside air, not just circulating the existing air and running it through a filter, but bringing in outside air. So you get air exchanges, you get your carbon dioxide level down to a point where people can think well without headaches and not go to sleep. And so the kids, I mean, there's actually a pretty big group of studies showing kids' test performances are up, productivity is up in businesses, and health is better. There's less absentee days. So I think the science is pretty solid. And it's interesting that it was the Denver Public Schools, somebody from EPA, and then a fellow from Harvard School of Public Health who works with Harvard Business School, Joe Allen. And the Denver Public Schools said, well, the other really big school district that has done this very well is Boston. So we have a nearby model where they've improved the indoor air quality in all their schools, and they have monitors. You can go on the dashboard. You can look up the Boston Public Schools, and you can go on their dashboard, see what the air quality is in any room that has an air monitor in it in any school in their district. And that they have quite a bit written on their website that talks about how that was a big, not only useful thing for the building managers, but it was very reassuring to staff and to families in terms of having a healthier environment, a healthier work and school environment. So anyway, it was a very well done hour presentation and half-hour questions just a week ago. So I've got some pretty much hot off the press reference material for that.
Okay, and the going back to the workshop, I think maybe the starting point, what I would suggest would be maybe the historical issue with tighter buildings and air quality. Sure. But what's been worked in through the stretch code is basically bringing the outside air in and higher requirements to address that.
Well, that's quite a history, because even back in the 90s, they were starting to make buildings tighter and tighter and better insulated and save energy. And the emphasis was on saving energy and not the health of the occupants.
Right. Well, I think, and I will just say that I went over the tape of the last meeting. That was one of the things that was raised by one of in public comment session, a home builder, was the tighter buildings making people sicker. So that's kind of I think a good starting point.
Yeah. That's exactly what Joe Allen from the Harvard School of Public Health, he said, we've been living with sick buildings for decades now. He actually edits 2 different journals on indoor air and so
okay.
forth. So anyway, that's
yeah.
a good baseline.
So I think if you can do all of this in 5 minutes, that's kind of the.
Well, yeah, you can. I think I can't go into detail, but I can sort of hit the highlights.
Right. Okay, great. So, all right. So any new business, and I don't have any additional updates, but I'd open it up to whether anybody does.
I think we've got a pretty big project here, two big projects.
Yeah.
Okay, the agenda, so the next meeting is a week from Tuesday. So Chris, just I'm happy to have lunch with you on the same day. Is that still okay? I don't know if you were aware.
Yeah, that works.
Okay, good. Okay. And I think assigned tasks we'll just follow up. I think we've talked about it, but basically I think a number of us are going to be working for preparing for the workshop.
The meeting Thursday is at the town, is it the?
Yeah, it's the Planning and Development Conference Room. Did you get the invite? If
Yeah,
not, I'll
I'll
forward
just
it.
go back and look at it. I don't
Yeah,
remember.
yeah.
Is it? Yeah. I've been in a conference room that's right next to Sean Hogan's room. I don't know if.
Yeah,
that's-
so let me ask you, given some of the other commitments, if would you be available to meet before 10 o'clock if we did it at 9:30, for example, to deal with David Anthony's schedule
Sure,
issues?
I think so. Yeah, I'm pretty
Chris,
sure. Let me check. I don't think I have anything else that.
Chris, are you okay if we move it up a half an hour?
Yes, it's good for me.
Chris, you're okay? Okay, all right. All right, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Sure.
All right,
Second.
second. All right, all in
Third.
favor? We're good to go.
Yeah.
And we did this meeting in less than an hour, so you're all to be congratulated. And I give you 36 minutes time back.
Thank you.